Subject: the Legislative Reform Package of 2025, a call to action for the free press. Dear free press. The power of elected office is not in the seat, it is in action. It is in advocacy, leadership, and the unwavering responsibility to serve the people. In today's world, where leaders have unprecedented access to platforms that amplify their voices, there is no excuse for silence, no justification for inaction, and no forgiveness for failure to lead. In the past few days, I have submitted 5 out of 6 critical legislative proposals to congressional members via email. These proposals are now part of the Legislative Reform Package of 2025, a comprehensive set of policies designed to restore transparency, protect constitutional rights, and uphold democracy. The proposals include the Fair Representation Act of 2025, ending gerrymandering by establishing independent redistricting commissions; the Humane Immigration Intake Act of 2025, a structured approach to border security and humane processing of migrants; the Transparent and Accountable Government Act, ensuring government efficiency, oversight, and integrity; the Federal Employees Protections Act of 2025, strengthening protections against wrongful dismissal and retaliation; the Defining Personhood Act of 2025, clarifying constitutional protections for all persons, reinforcing healthcare as a right. A 6th and final bill, the Constitutional Right to Healthcare legislative package, will soon follow, further solidifying healthcare as a constitutional right under the 4th and 14th Amendments. Every Democratic member of Congress has the power to be heard. If procedural restrictions prevent them from speaking on the floor, then let them step onto the Capitol steps and speak directly to the American people every single week if necessary. No member of Congress lacks a platform, unless they choose not to use it. So I ask this question: why should we not consider Democratic leadership ineffective, or worse, complicit in stagnation if they fail to act on these opportunities? Even if the GOP-controlled House or Senate blocks these proposals in the 119th Congress, there is no excuse for inaction. The Democrats must have a comprehensive legislative agenda fully prepared for when the 120th Congress begins. The moment a window of opportunity opens, there must be no scrambling, no hesitation, only execution. With concrete proposals in hand, with the ability to engage directly with their constituents, and with no procedural excuse for inaction, what justification remains? I challenge the press to demand answers. Every Democratic member of the Senate and the House must be asked, why are they not fighting for these initiatives? If leadership refuses to act, then the American people deserve to know why. There must be accountability, and there must be measure. Governance is not about holding office, it is about using that office to serve, to act, and if necessary, to fight for the people who place their trust in them. Attached is the Legislative Reform Package of 2025 for your review. This package provides clear, structured policy solutions that can and should be acted upon immediately. Will they rise to the occasion, or will history record them as the leaders who failed when action was needed most? Sincerely, Orion K. Daly. Federal Employees Protections Act of 2025. By Orion Carl Daly. Proposed bills for the 199th and 120th Congress Executive Summary. This proposal aims to enhance protections for federal employees by addressing challenges such as wrongful dismissal, inadequate whistleblower safeguards, and the need for fair review processes. The goal is to ensure that federal employees are protected from unjust practices, fostering a transparent and supportive work environment. Background and rationale. Federal employees often face challenges such as wrongful termination, lack of support when reporting misconduct, and limited avenues for appealing unjust decisions. This proposal seeks to address these issues by implementing a comprehensive set of protections that uphold integrity, fairness, and accountability within the federal workforce. Proposed measures. 1. Enhance whistleblower protections. Expand protections against retaliation for employees who report misconduct. Establish a confidential reporting system to protect the identity of whistleblowers. Strengthen enforcement mechanisms to hold accountable those who retaliate against whistleblowers. 2. Fair dismissal review process. Implement a standardized review process before any termination, ensuring decisions are fair and based on merit. Provide an avenue for employees to appeal dismissals through an independent body. Require detailed justification for dismissals and allow for transparent review procedures. 3. Independent Ombudsman Office. Create an Ombudsman Office dedicated to handling employee concerns, offering mediation, and providing guidance without fear of retaliation. Ensure the office operates independently of agency leadership to maintain impartiality. Empower the Ombudsman to recommend corrective actions and policy changes. By Orion Carl Daly. 5. Proposed congressional bills. 4. Strengthen anti-retaliation laws. Strengthen existing laws protecting federal employees from retaliation, ensuring clear legal recourse and support. Impose penalties on supervisors and officials who engage in retaliatory actions. Establish a dedicated legal assistance fund to support employees facing retaliation claims. Implementation and oversight. The Office of Personnel Management (OPM) and the Merit Systems Protection Board (MSPB) will oversee implementation. A Federal Employee Protection Task Force will be established to monitor progress and recommend policy refinements. Annual reporting to Congress will ensure transparency and accountability. This proposal aims to foster a workplace culture where federal employees can perform their duties with integrity, security, and confidence, knowing they are protected from unjust actions and have access to fair recourse mechanisms. The Transparent and Accountable Government Act. A bill to enhance government transparency and accountability. By Orion Carl Daly 7. Proposed Congressional Bills Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Transparent and Accountable Government Act. Section 2. Findings. Congress finds that transparency and accountability are essential for a functioning democracy, ensuring that government actions are open to public scrutiny and that citizens can hold officials accountable. The public has a fundamental right to access government information, enabling them to make informed decisions and participate in governance. A lack of transparency and accountability leads to inefficiency, corruption, and a decline in public trust. Establishing clear and enforceable transparency and accountability measures will strengthen democratic institutions and improve governmental efficiency. Section 3. Definitions. For purposes of this act, transparency means the public's right to access government information and understand governmental actions. Accountability refers to the obligation of government officials to explain their actions and decisions and be subject to oversight. Federal agency means any executive department, independent agency, or any entity funded by federal appropriations. Public record refers to all records including budgets, contracts, decision-making processes, and reports that pertain to governmental activities and are not classified for national security reasons. Section 4. Transparency measures. All federal agencies shall provide public access to non-classified records including budgets, contracts, and decision-making processes through a centralized online portal. Establish regular reporting requirements detailing agency activities, outcomes, and performance metrics. Implement real-time tracking of federal spending and make expenditure data publicly accessible. Require all meetings involving public policy decisions to be documented and summaries made available to the public within 30 days. Ensure federal websites provide clear, user-friendly access to government documents and data. By Orion Carl Daly 8. Proposed bills for the 199th and 120th Congress. Section 5. Accountability measures. To strengthen accountability, this act mandates the establishment of independent oversight bodies within federal agencies to investigate complaints and review governmental actions for compliance with transparency requirements. A whistleblower protection program to encourage the reporting of misconduct, fraud, and abuse without fear of retaliation. Annual ethics and transparency training for all federal employees to ensure adherence to accountability standards. A requirement that any government official found guilty of willful misconduct or obstruction of transparency measures be subject to disciplinary action, including removal from office and financial penalties. The creation of a public complaints and feedback system to allow citizens to report concerns and track responses from relevant agencies. Section 6. Implementation. All federal agencies shall implement the provisions of this act within 6 months of its enactment. The Office of Management and Budget (OMB) shall oversee the rollout of transparency and accountability standards across all federal agencies. Agencies shall establish training programs to educate employees on best practices for transparency and accountability. Section 7. Effectiveness and reporting. The effectiveness of this act will be assessed annually with a comprehensive report submitted to Congress detailing its impact on government operations and public trust. Each agency shall conduct an internal review of its transparency and accountability practices and submit findings to the relevant congressional committees. The Government Accountability Office (GAO) shall audit agency compliance with this act and recommend improvements where necessary. Section 8. Severability clause. If any provision of this act is found unconstitutional or invalid, the remaining provisions shall continue to be in effect. Section 9. Effective date. By Orion Carl Daly 9. Proposed congressional bills. This act shall take effect immediately upon passage. Constitutional justification. Article I, Section 8 grants Congress the authority to legislate on matters necessary for the general welfare of the United States. Article Roman II, Section 3 obligates the President to ensure that laws are faithfully executed, reinforcing the need for transparency. The First Amendment guarantees the public's right to access government information as part of the democratic process. This legislation establishes a robust framework for transparency and accountability to ensure that government actions remain visible, ethical, and responsive to the American people. A bill to establish intake towns for the humane and efficient processing of migrants and refugees. By Orion Carl Daly 11. Proposed Congressional Bill Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Humane Immigration Intake Act of 2025. Section 2. Findings and purpose. Of findings, Congress finds that immigration policy and migrant intake are distinct issues requiring separate management strategies. The United States has a moral and legal responsibility to process individuals seeking refuge in an orderly, humane, and secure manner. The historical failures of mass detainment policies necessitate the establishment of an ethical, organized, and sustainable approach to intake. Vast areas of land in underpopulated states could serve as designated intake locations, providing temporary housing, legal services, and social support while ensuring community safety. Establishing federally funded, state-administered intake towns would provide a structured approach to processing new arrivals, allowing for comprehensive legal, social, and economic integration services. Federal-state collaboration is essential to ensure intake towns adhere to national security and immigration policies while also benefiting host states economically. The purpose. This act aims to establish a network of intake towns to provide a humane, efficient, and economically beneficial system for processing, supporting, and integrating migrants and refugees into the United States. Section 3. Establishment of intake towns. A designation and infrastructure. The federal government shall provide funding and technical assistance to states willing to establish intake towns for processing and supporting migrants. Intake towns shall consist of safe temporary housing, modular homes, dormitories, or similar accommodations. Essential amenities including sanitation, food, water, and healthcare facilities. Secure, well-regulated entry and exit points to maintain safety for residents and surrounding communities. By Orion Carl Daly 12. Proposed bills for the 199th and 120th Congress be legal and social services. Each intake town shall be equipped with legal aid centers offering immigration counseling, asylum application assistance, and document processing. Translation services for non-English speaking individuals. Social workers and case managers to assist in trauma recovery and adaptation. See education and workforce development. Language instruction programs with a focus on English and basic literacy. Job training initiatives, vocational education, and employment placement. Assistance. Collaboration with local businesses to facilitate workforce integration. E-healthcare services. Comprehensive healthcare facilities, including physical and mental health support. Vaccination and medical screening to ensure public health safety. Emergency response teams to address medical crises. E-security and oversight. Intake towns shall be monitored by trained security personnel with a focus on protection rather than detention. An independent oversight board shall review intake town operations to prevent abuse, corruption, or mistreatment of residents. Regular audits shall ensure compliance with federal and state guidelines. Section 4. Funding and state participation. A federal funding. The Department of Homeland Security (DHS) shall allocate funds to states that establish and operate federally compliant intake towns. Funding shall cover infrastructure development, operational costs, and service provision. 3. By Orion Carl Daly 13. Proposed congressional bills be state participation and incentives. States volunteering to host intake towns shall receive priority access to federal infrastructure grants, tax incentives, and job creation programs to support local economic growth. Federal assistance for law enforcement and emergency services in designated intake areas. A minimum of 3 pilot intake towns shall be established in geographically diverse locations as a proof of concept. Section 5. Implementation and review. A implementation timeline. Within 12 months of enactment, DHS shall develop federal guidelines and funding mechanisms for intake towns. Within 24 months, at least 3 pilot towns shall be operational. A national rollout plan shall be proposed after evaluating pilot program outcomes. The annual review and congressional oversight. An annual report on intake town effectiveness, security, and economic impact shall be submitted to Congress. Congress retains the authority to adjust funding, oversight, and operational procedures based on review findings. Section 6. Severability clause. If any provision of this act is found unconstitutional, the remaining provisions shall continue to be in effect. Section 7. Effective date. This act shall take effect immediately upon passage. Constitutional justification. Article I, Section 8 Naturalization Clause grants Congress authority over immigration regulations. Article I, Section 9 affirms Congress's power over migration related. By Ryan Carl Daly 14. Proposed bills for the 199 to each and 120 to each Congress. Matters. Supremacy Clause. Article VI, Clause 2 ensures federal law governs the intake process. 10th Amendment allows federal-state collaboration on lawful migration policies. This legislation establishes a fair, humane, and structured approach to migrant intake while ensuring state participation and economic incentives. The Fair Representation Act of 2025. A bill to establish independent redistricting commissions in all states for congressional districts. By Ryan Carl Daly 16. Proposed bills for the 199 to each and 120 to each Congress. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Fair Representation Act of 2025. Section 2. Findings and purpose. Findings, Congress finds that the U.S. Constitution. Article I, Section 4 grants Congress the authority to regulate the time, place, and manner of congressional elections. Gerrymandering distorts democratic representation, leading to uncompetitive elections, voter disenfranchisement, and politically entrenched power. Independent redistricting commissions have successfully ensured fair districting in several states, including California, Arizona, and Michigan, improving electoral integrity. Congress has the constitutional authority, under the Supremacy Clause. Article VI, Clause 2, to establish federal requirements that override conflicting state laws. The 10th Amendment limits federal overreach but does not prohibit Congress from regulating the manner in which federal elections are conducted. The purpose. This act ensures that congressional districts are drawn by independent, non-partisan commissions to uphold fair representation, public trust, and compliance with constitutional principles. Section 3. Requirement for independent redistricting commissions. A requirement for independent commissions. Each state shall establish an independent redistricting commission (IRC) to oversee the drawing of congressional districts after each decennial census. The IRC shall be composed of an equal number of Democrats, Republicans, and non-affiliated or third-party members. Prohibit elected officials, lobbyists, or political operatives from serving on the commission. Conduct public hearings and allow public input before finalizing maps. Use neutral districting criteria, including compactness, contiguity, respect for communities of interest, and compliance with the Voting Rights Act. By Ryan Carl Daly 17. Proposed congressional bills B. Ban on partisan gerrymandering. No congressional district shall be drawn with the intent or effect of favoring or disfavoring a political party. The Department of Justice shall have the authority to review and challenge maps that violate this standard. See state compliance and deadlines. Within 2 years of enactment, all states must pass legislation to implement independent commissions. If a state fails to comply, a federal court panel shall oversee redistricting for that state. Section 4. Enforcement and penalties. Enforcement by the Attorney General. The Department of Justice shall have enforcement authority to ensure compliance with this act. B. Judicial review. Any citizen may challenge a state's failure to comply through federal district courts. Courts may invalidate maps found to violate the provisions of this act. See federal election funding penalties. Non-compliant states shall lose access to certain federal election administration funds. Funds will be restored upon certification of compliance. Section 5. Severability Clause. If any provision of this act is found unconstitutional, the remaining provisions shall continue to be in effect. Section 6. Effective date. This act shall take effect immediately upon passage. Constitutional justification. Article I, Section 4 Elections Clause grants Congress the power to regulate congressional elections. Article VI, Clause 2 Supremacy Clause ensures that this federal law overrides conflicting state laws. 10th Amendment does not prohibit Congress from regulating federal elections, only state governance outside of those elections. By Ryan Carl Daly 18. Proposed bills for the 199th and 120th Congress. Subject. Introducing the Defining Personhood Act of 2025, a critical step for constitutional clarity. Dear members of Congress, I am writing to introduce the Defining Personhood Act of 2025, a legislative initiative. Proposed bills for the 199th and 120th Congress. The Defining Personhood Act of 2025, a bill to define person under U.S. law in accordance with constitutional protections. By Ryan Carl Daly 23. Proposed Congressional Bills. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Defining Personhood Act of 2025. Section 2. Findings. Congress finds that the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution explicitly affirms the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. The definition of person has significant implications for constitutional protections, legal standing, human rights, and the application of law. Legal, political, and technological developments necessitate a clear and modern statutory definition of person to ensure the consistent application of rights and protections. Ensuring that every individual is recognized as a person under the law is fundamental to upholding the principles of justice, equality, and due process. The health, safety, and welfare of an individual are integral to their security as a person and must be protected under law to ensure full realization of constitutional rights. Section 3. Definition of person. For the purposes of federal law and all legal interpretations of the U.S. Constitution, person shall refer to any living human being from the moment of birth, recognized as possessing legal and constitutional rights, including but not limited to protections under the 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendments. The term person shall also extend to U.S. citizens, lawful permanent residents, and those lawfully present within U.S. jurisdiction. Individuals regardless of race, gender, nationality, or socioeconomic status. Individuals in state or federal custody, ensuring protections against unlawful detention and cruel or unusual punishment. Individuals under medical care or incapacitation, ensuring the right to dignity, healthcare access, and due process. Individuals whose health, safety, and welfare require legal protection to uphold their constitutional rights and ensure their ability to participate fully in society. This act explicitly reaffirms that corporations, artificial entities, and non-human entities do not constitute persons under the 4th Amendment and similar constitutional provisions. By Ryan Carl Daly 24. Proposed bills for the 199th and 120th Congress. The definition of person shall not be construed to limit existing protections under U.S. asylum law, refugee status, or international human rights agreements. Section 4. Implementation and enforcement. All federal agencies, including but not limited to the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Department of Health and Human Services, shall align their policies and procedures with the definition established in this Act. Any legal ambiguity in federal statutes where person is undefined shall default to the definition provided in this Act. The Attorney General shall issue guidance to all law enforcement agencies, ensuring that 4th Amendment protections extend to all defined persons under this Act. Any law, regulation, or legal interpretation that contradicts this Act shall be subject to judicial review and necessary amendment. Section 5. Severability Clause. If any provision of this Act is found unconstitutional or invalid, the remaining provisions shall continue to be in effect. Section 6. Effective date. This Act shall take effect immediately upon passage. Constitutional justification. 4th Amendment ensures that all persons are secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. 5th Amendment guarantees due process and protection from self-incrimination. 14th Amendment defines citizenship, due process, and equal protection under the law. Supremacy Clause Article VI Clause 2 ensures that this definition applies uniformly across all jurisdictions. This legislation establishes a clear, constitutional, and enforceable definition of person, ensuring the protection of human dignity, legal standing, and fundamental rights in the United States. The Right to Health Security Act of 2025. A bill to establish healthcare as a constitutional right under the definition of personhood. By Ryan Carl Daly 26. Proposed bills for the 199th and 120th Congress. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Right to Health Security Act of 2025. Section 2. Findings. Congress finds that the 4th Amendment of the United States Constitution affirms the right of people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. The Defining Personhood Act of 2025 establishes that health, safety, and welfare are integral to the security of a person. The 14th Amendment guarantees that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, and that all persons shall receive equal protection under the law. Without access to health care, a person cannot be secure in their person, and therefore health care must be treated as a fundamental right under the Constitution. Government exists to serve the people, and a transparent, accountable government must ensure that all persons have access to the health care necessary to preserve their life, liberty, and security. Section 3. Declaration of Health Care as a Constitutional Right. Health care shall be recognized as a fundamental right for every person as defined under the Defining Personhood Act of 2025. The federal government shall have a constitutional obligation to ensure access to essential healthcare services for all persons under U.S. jurisdiction. No person shall be denied necessary medical care due to their financial status, employment status, race, gender, or any other protected classification. Healthcare protections shall extend to preventive care, emergency services, maternal health, mental health, and chronic illness management. Section 4. Implementation of healthcare access. The Department of Health and Human Services shall be tasked with establishing a national framework to ensure universal healthcare coverage under this Act. Federal and state governments shall coordinate efforts to provide public healthcare programs ensuring comprehensive access to essential medical services. By Ryan Carl Daly, 27. Proposed congressional bills. Cost regulation policies to prevent price gouging and ensure affordability. Expanded protections for low-income and at-risk populations through subsidized programs. Private health care providers shall remain free to operate, but no private entity shall restrict access to essential healthcare services based on financial ability. A national review board shall be established to ensure compliance, transparency, and efficiency in delivering healthcare under this Act. Section 5. Enforcement and judicial review. The U.S. Attorney General shall have the authority to challenge state or federal laws that violate the healthcare protections established in this Act. Persons denied access to healthcare shall have the right to seek legal recourse in federal courts. Any legislation or policies that conflict with this Act shall be subject to immediate review and amendment to align with this constitutional mandate. Section 6. Severability Clause. If any provision of this Act is found unconstitutional or invalid, the remaining provisions shall continue to be in effect. Section 7. Effective date. This Act shall take effect immediately upon passage. Constitutional justification. Fourth Amendment ensures that all persons have the right to be secure in their persons, extending to healthcare access. 14th Amendment requires that no person be denied life, liberty, or security without due process. Supremacy Clause, Article VI, Clause 2, ensures that this definition of healthcare access applies uniformly across all jurisdictions. This legislation establishes a clear and enforceable mandate that healthcare is a constitutional right, ensuring equitable access and protection for all persons in the United States.